Hi everybody, it's Sarah and it's Spirit of Saturday today, and the topic today is reconnecting with old relationships. The topic this week in general is about finding yourself socially and finding connection socially and just really building a defense against that isolation that the eating disorder drives you into, because I can guarantee you, for me, being isolated is always a bad thing, and being isolated and away from people just gives my eating disorder so much power that it's kind of ridiculous. But for today, we're talking about old relationships, and the fact that they can sometimes be kind of triggering, particularly if you have friends who have developed eating disorders along the way too. Or you have friends who you met with, or you met in recovery and they are no longer doing so well, and they're symptomatic but you're not. You can have friendships where it's a very, very healthy friendship, but your eating disorder has been an impediment on it for so long that you kind of forget why you're friends. And you can also run into problems. This is like just all things I've run into. You can run into problems where your old friendships remind you of really painful things. Not through any fault of your friend, of course, but more so between, healing and between remembering the past, which can often be, a sore spot for a lot of people. You can end up finding these people triggering, even though that's the very last thing that they would want to do for you. One of the things, first of all, we'll talk about eating disorder friends first. One of the things that I find really, really helpful, when I first started recovery from eating disorders, I swore up and down I'd never be friends with anybody that I was in recovery with. That, of course, did not work out that way. There are a lot of incredible people that I've met in recovery, and so I decided that as long as we had something outside of the eating disorder that we, had in common, so be it nursing or first aid or swimming or, arts and crafts or, YouTube or just anything that we had that wasn't eating disorder related, if I could find something like that in that friendship, then it was worth keeping. And then the second thing that I had to get my head around is, what happens when these people aren't doing so well? And I realized over time that these people are people first, and eating disorders second, at the very, very worst of their lives. These people are not their eating disorders. So when I remember that they're people, when I remember that they have their fair share of struggles, when I remember that, their lives aren't perfect, I stop being triggered by them. And I'm not sure why, but the more that I understand about them and the more that I try to remember that they're not perfect and that they have their own issues to deal with, it becomes a more functional friendship. And what I mean by functional, I mean you bounce off ideas from each other, support, that kind of thing. In terms of older friends that you don't have the commonality of the eating disorder with, I find some of them still very triggering, because I was very, very deeply sad for most of the time that I had my eating disorder, and they remind me of that. They also remind me, I have to be very, very dialectical about this and remember that they were that light when I was so upset and so sad and so depressed. So there's no reason they can't be a light now. So if they're not, and it's not working for me that way, I just feel like I have to change my focus. What is it about them that's triggering me? Are they constantly talking about how thin I was? In that case, that's probably not very functional for me. But if it's just their presence and their reassuring, like their presence is there, and they've reassured me they're not going to leave, and look, if they were going to leave, they would have left already. You know, that's something I have to take in consideration and really evaluate for face value, because they're right. They've been there for me already, and they will be forever, or for as long as they can be. And just because they remind me of something painful doesn't mean that I should write them off, because there's a lot of things in life that are painful that if we wrote them off every single time, we'd have nothing left in life. So yeah, I guess that's my my take on it, is remembering that your eating disorder friends are friends first and not eating disorders. So if they start to trigger you, remember they have their own issues, otherwise they wouldn't have an eating disorder. You know, if you're jealous, make sure that you acknowledge that. I'm jealous of this, I'm jealous of that. My eating disorder is jealous of this, my eating disorder is jealous of that. There's, you know, there's a difference. And then just remembering that as much as your old friends who were supportive of you when you were very, very sick, or have been supportive of you and been waiting for a while for you to get better and to get well, just make sure you find what connected you in the first place before you decide to write off the friendship. Because if they've stuck with you through your eating disorder, then they're pretty incredible people. Yeah, so that's about it in terms of what I have to say. I'm really tired. I've had a hard week, so it's probably not as long as usual, and hopefully I still make some sense. Take care and have a good week, guys.